I think so, yeah.
There's no shortage of think pieces on the browning of politics in America. It's not so much revelation as it is an inevitability. But representation isn't the end goal. After all, who's even defining what representation means? Based on the outcomes, it doesn't seem to be us. Even with the increasing rate of Black firsts, first Black city councilors, first Black school board members, first Black state senators, etc. in Oregon. Black issues campaigns like defunding the police and removing cops from schools or increasing access to affordable, culturally relevant childcare continue to struggle to gain traction. I'd argue that's the same old white supremacist power structures and ways of thinking at work. To take it a step further, these things even dictate how we engage,
And we'll
or
be
more
talking,
often than not,
and then I'll
don't
give you the
engage with
option
each
in
other.
between, and then
With
some.
that in mind, Intezar and I decided to engage in both an interview and community building exercise by bringing together seemingly two different sides of the political coin, activist and journalist Max Smith and Washington County
And
Commissioner
I'll take a
Nafisa
few
Fine.
first, and then I'll have
Let some
Nafisa
tell it,
do the
including many of their
discussion.
allies on the political left,
How do you
and the
like
two have
stand in
nothing in
your
common
power,
besides being Black Muslims in the
in this
public eye in
process of
Oregon.
like,
Prior to the shoot, they'd
it's like
never
on the
met.
Wiz, like
So, along with our
I
DP,
feel like
Fani
it's like
Bell,
a
we got
team
together
effort.
at Jason Hill's photography studio to talk about politics and Mac and Nafisa's experiences
Yes,
as
yes,
Black Muslims
yes,
in
yeah,
Oregon.
all the things, and just kind of.
Mac moved with his family to Clackamas, now Happy Valley, from New York in 1992. Nafisa's family also came to Portland in the 90s, but as Somali refugees escaping civil war. She was 17 at the time. Both went through an adjustment period.
The first initial thought for the first few months was like, this place is just really white.
I've also never met a white person until I was going through the process to come to America. There was a white person interviewing us to start the process. So there's that. The idea is, or the idea you get from the refugee camp is money grows on trees in America. So you're coming to America with this, you're gonna make so much money, you're gonna work, you're gonna take care of your family back home. And, but then it was cold and you had to go to school and learn English and then you come to realize that you have to find a job and be able to do that job. And so it was a bit of a cultural shock, is what I remember. But mostly what I remember most is being cold.
How they experienced and dealt with Islamophobia early on differed.
But Oregon is just so intrinsically racist and xenophobic. If anything, it's not white and Christian that or white and atheist that just being a Muslim becomes a hassle for a lot of people. So you see, I feel like a lot of Muslims in Oregon kind of make being a Muslim a secondary character trait. I feel like when I go back east, Muslims are more open about being Muslim. Where out here, I think it's more of a thing that they'll kind of hide.
I think at Franklin High School, people thought I might be a Samoan. I think I didn't realize it. There's a Samoan girl that was in class with me, and for some reason, one day we had a confrontation, and I think somebody said to her, she's from Somalia, she doesn't understand your language or whatever. But I remember her coming and saying, I didn't know you're Samoan. I realized that I thought she was mispronouncing Somalia.
Most people don't understand enough about Islam to really argue with you about it. So I don't really have to deal with it too much.
Community building was big for both growing up. With Mac, it started at home. His family found a spiritual home at the Muslim Community Center of Portland, and his parents were involved in helping build the masjid in Vancouver. Meanwhile, for Nafisa, coming to Portland was a crash course in learning the nuances of the local Black community and everyone within it.
And I remember when we were placed in Northeast Portland, Dawson's Park is where majority of Black people got together, and the complex, the low-income housing that we were placed, there were majority African-born communities that were, there's only 6 apartments. Majority of us were either from Somalia or Ethiopia, somewhere from, there's different ethnics within Ethiopia. And we would just, during the afternoon, we would just go to Dawson's Park because we thought that's where all the Black people hung out, and had no idea there's so many different stuff happening within Dawson's Park. And and all of a sudden one day the police will come, and disperse everyone around and just tell us to go home. And so I think I'm coming to America, like I had this idea of like anybody who's Black is from Africa, so I was more concerned of where they're from, getting to know and seeking refuge in that person. And like that person is African, they're gonna help me. And then learning there's Black Americans and Black Caribbeans and so different ethnicities within Black, or different racial groups within the race of Black.
These experiences would heavily influence her as she went on to found the Pan-African Festival of Oregon in 2017. Featuring food, businesses, and live performances from all parts of the African diaspora, the Pan-African Festival became an annual event in Portland favorite. While Nafisa was planting the seeds for the Pan-African Festival, Mac was also making waves in the community event space. In 2014, he joined forces with various Portland music personalities and institutions to launch The Thesis, a monthly hip-hop and R&B showcase that has since received national attention. While bringing more consistent live and local hip-hop to downtown Portland was a feat in itself, The Thesis has become a premier event for its intentionality in showcasing the broadness of the Portland hip-hop scene.
But somewhere around 2016, 2017, we really kind of turned the corner on our presentation. Verbs started making these little video projections that we would use like in lieu of like a light show, and so that became like an instant background. And then I made it a push to really start going after bringing in like photographers from the community to kind of just be invited and be a part of it. And in turn, they just started just taking pictures and creating all kinds of media, and that kind of turned it up. That turned everything up a lot. I think one of the most important things that changed from the beginning to the end is that we kind of installed a unwritten, but obviously their policy of really just having no more like straight dude shows. That's just not it at all. So we have always we don't do like Women's Month or Pride Month or things like that. We just ensure that we include everybody every time. It's important. That's why even before the protests and all that, people have said like The Thesis is activism in a way, because it does seek to teach by example.
Fast forward to 2020, and after experiencing significant success as community event organizers, both Mac and Nafisa turned their eyes to civic leadership, albeit in different ways. Nafisa successfully ran for Washington County Commissioner, making her the first Black and Muslim woman to be elected to the position. Not surprisingly, seeking a position of power brought out a more virulent version of the bigotry she faced growing up.
When I was running, anti-Blackness was real. Islamophobia was real. They accused me of being a baby killer, just all kinds of terrorist, name it. So people were brutal.
While Nafisa was campaigning for office, Mac emerged as one of the most quoted people during the 2020 protests, putting a laser focus on police budgets anytime a reporter reached out.
On Twitter before the protests, I had like 5,000 followers, something like that, But then like in the protests, people like came in, actually it was like kind of like actually like a COVID, and then the protests hit and it was like 20,000 followers, And then it's like, most of these people are following me because they just want some kind of like protest news. They want some information on what's going on with the cops. They want some, some rhetoric to run with.
While those outside Portland might know Mac for his tweets, those closer to him laud his work continuing to be what he calls a connective tissue person. As someone who doesn't see many other Black Muslims in the protest space, breaking down supposed divisions, especially within the community, is important to Mac. To be completely transparent, when we first began pursuing this project, one of the questions I got consistently was whether it would address rifts between immigrants and those born in the U.S. Obviously, Nafisa and Mac don't speak for all Black Muslim immigrants and those born in the U.S. respectively, but their sentiments do speak to something not just Black Muslim Oregonians, but all Black Oregonians can aspire to. What does Black political power look like?
And I think there's just inherently a difference between people who come to a place for an opportunity versus the people who are already in that place and have seen the inability to opt to this, perhaps, flourish with with the opportunities given. My dad's an immigrant. He came here from Cuba. He's a black, immigrant, and you come here with a certain idea of what America is, and America is America. Some people make it, and a lot of people don't. But I think though that the communities do at least try to support one another because there is so much overlap.
When it comes to leaders, I think I like to think that we're getting smarter and learning from past experiences and unifying ourselves to say, you know what, we're black, and that disaggregating the blackness in there doesn't help us. It is a distraction to distract us. The goal is to get as many resources as possible funneled into our community.
Perhaps this unity is no more evident than on Black issues campaigns, such as police accountability, that are often labeled radical or afterthoughts by the white establishment.
Black African men and Black African American men get stopped at the same time, because the police doesn't know one is African and one is a Black American. He just sees a black dude and they get stopped.
If we go back to like 2014 or whatever, it's like we definitely had like months where we were just going on and on and on about cops and and how they were causing issues across the city and what. So yeah, this is not anything new for like we out here for the things that we've been doing. It's just new times.
Ultimately, Max Smiff and Nafisa are just two people. What comes of this shoot and these interviews remains to be seen. What I can say for sure is that the conversation sure sounds different when it's on our terms and representation isn't the finish line. So you were an MC at one point.
Yeah.
You were like, you just talk about sort of what that evolution has been.
I was rapping, man. We was out here rapping. And that was a fun time, being in your 20s and rapping and trying to go to shows around the state and trying to travel out of state and going to South by, Southwest, and opening for bigger rappers and being on bigger stages and throwing your own shows. It's fun stuff, and just being a whole dummy, it's a good phase. We did a show in Corvallis once and a light fixture fell off the ceiling. Randall Wyatt was there. He can verify that story. That was really wild. I was doing a song and like the power blew or something and like the light fell off the ceiling. We were like, whoa. But probably the funniest show ever was like we did this show. I was like asked like at the last minute to come perform like this PSU thing. So I ended up performing like on my lunch break, like in like my work clothes on the PSU park blocks. And it was like on my lunch break. It was like a 15-minute. Like I ran out there and like did the rap, and then like ran and got like some cart food and went back to the office. It was probably the weirdest thing ever, but it was a lot of fun.